Hello friends, it's Kimberly. I am looking at Luke's version of The Woman with the Issue of Blood today. I have been participating in a 30-day art challenge, and today's challenge was do a piece of art over something that you've overcome, like in your faith, and how you kind of like a result of how you did that. And I realized one of the biggest things that has shifted in me over this last year has been my willingness to let Jesus heal me. Now that might sound really weird. And let me preface this art with, it goes from okay to decent to ugly to decent. And so this is not a learn how to layer paint colors by Kimberly. This is a learn how to try to express your heart even if the art doesn't look beautiful, because that was not the point. So I'm going to talk to you about the process, and you can watch while I paint and do all this. But so my emotional process with my chronic illness, for years I couldn't imagine that I couldn't imagine asking for God to heal me and then just not having that happen, because I had lost so much. I had lost the career He gave me. I had lost some friends. I'd lost a lot, and I couldn't hear no from Him. Like, I just knew, like, I needed my faith, and I knew I'd get to a different place at some point, but I just couldn't risk it. And so this year I felt like He has really asked me to say, to let Him in and say, hey, would you please put your trust in me to heal you? And that is super scary, because I have a genetic disorder, and the only way it's going to get healed is through Jesus. And that's also very exciting. But what I realized is I've come to a place where I'm open. I'm willing to ask. I'm willing to risk. And even if healing physically doesn't happen, I think I'm supposed to be praying for it anyway and having hope that it will. And but I know I also have no guarantees that it will. So it's kind of this interesting tension that I feel like He's asking me to hold out hope that it will happen and hold out trust that it may not. And let all of that just be okay, and it can be messy, which is why I just kept painting this flower, because I kept painting and painting and painting and just adding layers as I was kind of thinking through the emotions and the process of all this. So what I decided to do for this piece of art, I decided to make something to tuck in my Bible, and it's an invitation, because I felt like, yeah, that's the thing I've overcome, is I finally invited Jesus into my body's healing process, where I just hadn't done that before. I'd let Him in to take care of me. I'd let Him in to relieve symptoms. I'd let Him in my heart completely, like all sorts of areas of my life. I let Him come in, but the physical healing just, I honest to goodness, guys, didn't know how to ask for that, how to trust for that. And now it's kind of funny, because He's just given me this peace, and it does not come from a guarantee that He's going to heal me. It's just some kind of weird peace, that, the peace of God that passes all understanding, that I'm just holding these tensions of walking in this, walking out life in this body that doesn't work right, at the same time holding out hope in my Savior as the healer. And I feel a little bit like the woman with the issue of blood, because doctors cannot take care of me. Goodness knows I have spent over a decade and multiple thousands of dollars trying to figure out what is wrong with me and what can help. And really, it is only Jesus at this point. And I feel like I've kind of been like her too, or I'm like kind of sneaking up behind Him and like, I don't want to bother you, but I'm just going to touch you, and I'm trying not to defile you, and I'm trying to just kind of do this and sneak away. But I know you can do this. I just don't want to bother you right now because you're busy, and you know, I love this story. I love this story. So I chose these colors for reasons. The blue is because Jesus would have been seen as a rabbi, and he probably would have had blue tassels on the edge of his robe. And then in the rose, I painted this deep red, kind of a maroon, and a purple. Purple being his royalty, and maroon being both his blood and her blood. His blood heals, and he healed her blood issues. So, not to get really gross and gory about blood, but just how all that turned out just so beautifully. And so I decided I'd try to paint these little leaves. I wanted to incorporate leaves because of the flower, but also it's the color, kind of the awareness color of my genetic disorder. It's this bright green. And I'm like, yeah, let's turn this genetic disorder into life instead of all the problems that it gives me. Let's turn this green ribbon of awareness into green leaves and growth. And so I was just like kind of prayerful while I was doing this whole thing and praying through this whole process. And I just would encourage you guys to do the same. Just give yourself some time to think about a time when, or something that you could invite Jesus into your life that maybe you haven't thought of inviting him into before. Maybe it's a problem you thought you needed to solve. Maybe it's something that you're scared to give to him. Maybe it's something you feel like he's let you down on and you're scared to risk again. But what invitation could you make to Jesus today? As we're kind of right now at the taping of this video, it's Lent, and that's such a great time to be thinking about such things. And so what kind of invitation could you give Christ? And then while you're making an invitation that you can tuck in your Bible, just be prayerful and considering what you're creating and why you're creating it that way. So you see, I'm just touching up different things, and honestly, if I wanted something relatively pretty, I should have just left things alone at this point. But as you'll see when I come up, I decided to totally change the flower. And all that came because of, like, I start to paint, sorry, I'm kind of at a loss for words. I start to paint this red on, kind of symbolically, like it's his healing blood. Gosh, this is hard to articulate, you guys. And then I decide, you know what? I want to concentrate on him being my healer, and him being my spiritual leader, my God. And I just started painting this blue, and then I realized, oh my goodness, blue roses are impossible, right? Like, only man can manufacture a blue rose. And I feel like what I'm praying for is impossible in some ways. Like, it's like the elusive blue rose. Like, we cannot figure out in nature how to make a blue rose. So I thought, oh my goodness, yes, let's turn this whole thing blue, because it's just as if we found a blue rose growing out of a rose bush. It would be a miracle. It's not too hard for God to make a blue rose, but it is too hard for man. And that's exactly what's going on with my genetic disorder. It's too hard for man. Man cannot heal it. It's just not going to happen. And so if you see me running and skipping someday and telling you I'm healed, it is purely by Jesus. And I will be like a blue rose. So the blue makes this kind of ugly. because we've already painted red and purple and all this kind of stuff. But again, like I said in the beginning, that just wasn't the point. The point was the process. And there was something even just kind of healing in doing all this painting in these layers, knowing that there were all sorts of kind of feelings kind of through the depth of this rose. So I tried blotting it with some lace, which I've done with some watercolors lately, and it turns out kind of cool, but I didn't really like it with this. So then I decided to add some white. This is some white watercolor paint just to kind of lighten up the middle and to symbolize Jesus's purity. And to me, that's just all about possibility. And then I'm just writing what the invitation is. Heal me, Lord. Like, you're invited now. Like, you are in. And isn't God so nice as to not, like, tell me I had to be asking for this, or shaming me because I didn't ask sooner, or anything like that? Like, the same with the woman with the issue of blood. He didn't say, why didn't you come to me sooner? Or why are you bugging me today? Or what's going on with you? Why'd you spend all that money when I could have just helped you? You know, like, he just doesn't do that. And so I thought, you know, creating this invitation was just a great symbolic way of kind of documenting this in my Bible, this new area that I'm trusting him. So I'm just taking these brush markers, and they're a water-based brush marker, and so I'm drawing out this lettering, nothing too fancy. Then I'm just going to go in with a water brush and kind of blend this purple and pink together. You can see, like, you guys, this is not a work of art. This, but it's so personal, and it's so so important in my process. I chose pink and purple here because I feel like those represent me. Like, okay, I'm here. Bright Pink Kimberly is here asking for you and inviting you to come in. And I'm willing to be vulnerable. I'm willing to go press through the crowd and risk having you turn me away, because I know you're a good God, and I know you're loving Jesus, and you're not gonna turn me away. You're not gonna reject me. You're not gonna shame me, and you're not going to let me down, no matter what my future looks like. I have a hope and a future, because Jeremiah 29:11 promises that. And so I'm here, and I'm inviting you in today, and I'm inviting you guys into this process too, as you're hanging out with me here today. But I hope that this can give you some ideas. Like, just make an invitation to Jesus for something in your life where you really kind of need to go out on a limb and ask him. Maybe it's a financial thing. Maybe it's a family member that's gone away from the Lord, or that isn't saved, or maybe it's struggles you're having in a marriage or with a child, or maybe it's your employment or lack thereof. I don't know. There's so many areas where we're so vulnerable, and sometimes we think maybe we don't deserve God to come in and take care of us in those areas. And sometimes we feel like we don't, we're not ready, or we're kind of scared to ask, that maybe we're a bother. But we're not. We're not a bother at all. In fact, the woman in this story was so afraid that she was a bother that she was trying to hide, but Jesus stopped and wanted to look her in the eye and just say, I see you. And he wants to see you too. So I'm just going to tuck this in my Bible here. I'm going to glue it in so that it doesn't fall out using my favorite tacky glue, my fast grab glue that you guys can know, like, my favorite supplies are my white gel pen and my tacky glue, right? They try to show up in every video. Anyway, so I just tucked that in, and I did a little bit of journaling off camera. So with that, I'll put the ball in your court, and you figure out what your invitation's going to be. Bye.